Is a surf retreat worth it? Hi, this is Jordy. I'm the founder of the Independent Surfer, and today we're going to discuss whether a surf retreat is worth it or not. Now, just as a disclaimer, I might be kind of biased towards this because I actually do own and run a company that runs surf retreats, but I swear we're going to look at this really objectively. And at the end of the day, I guess the question is whether or not a surf retreat is worth it for you. So we're going to discuss some things to consider, and then also discuss like what you should be looking for in terms of a surf retreat, because like not all surf retreats are made equally, and obviously you have considerations like budget and all that sort of thing. So let's jump into whether or not a surf retreat is worth it. I guess you might want to consider at first like what a surf retreat is or what a surf and yoga retreat is, and typically what it is. And in my understanding, the difference maybe between like a surf retreat or surf and yoga retreat and surf camp or surf and yoga camp is that like surf retreats are typically mobile companies that would hire out a venue and then kind of host their program at that specific venue. Versus surf camps are more fixed. A good example of this is like Surf Camp Lombok in Lombok. I don't know if you've been there. It's one of my favorite places in the whole world. Obviously, bias again. But basically, it's like a fixed camp in Lombok that doesn't move around. Versus us, like we host surf and yoga retreats in various different locations. Our next one coming up is in Nicaragua, and we'll be hosting a few more. So keep an eye out for those. But basically, a bit more mobile. And when you go to a surf retreat, you should expect a few things. First thing you might expect at a surf retreat is obviously surfing. Uh, Most of them are based around surf coaching, but there are obviously a few surf and yoga retreats that might just be surfing and doing yoga. So it's important to distinguish whether or not you want to go to a surf and yoga retreat to just surf and like kind of get guided and look for waves and do yoga and all that stuff, or if your goal is to go to that surf retreat and get coached, because not all of them will offer coaching. And really, it just depends on what you're looking for at the end of the day. So do your research in terms of whether or not you are going there to just kind of surf and be guided versus whether or not you're going to go there and be coached. We personally do both, and that's the goal anyways. Our one in Nicaragua coming up is definitely for coaching more specifically, and not for coaches, but for us to coach you if you want to learn to surf or improve your surfing. We host for beginners and intermediates. Others that we might host in the future might just be for surfing. So again, just keep an eye out for that so that you're not booking the wrong thing, and at other companies as well. That brings me into the next thing. Like, I guess, you really need to ask whether or not the surf retreat caters to your ability. And if you're not 100% sure what your ability is, you can go and check this video right here. We have a video on like how to choose your ability according to us anyways. And we break it down into beginner, advanced beginner, intermediate, advanced intermediate, and then advanced. Because, just beginner and intermediate is very broad spectrum. So make sure that they cater to you and your ability. Typically when they combine like beginners and intermediates in the same camp or retreat, it can be very hard to cater to everybody at the same time. So we kind of split ours up a little bit. We have beginner retreats and advanced beginner retreats, and then we have intermediate retreats and advanced intermediate retreats. Because that also allows us to host our retreats like in times of the area that are more conducive for beginners in terms of surf, and then more conducive for intermediate. So just keep an eye out for that. Another thing you might want to consider whether or not it's worth it for you is obviously budget. Like every surf and yoga retreat has a price to it. And at the end of the day, like it's more than just an experience. Like you should get some sort of coaching out of it. And if that's what you're looking for, like I would say like overall surf retreats are totally worth it. You will probably make a lot of progress, get a lot of videos of yourself surfing, and just overall have an amazing time meeting people. That's why we host them, to be honest, is one, obviously the coaching aspect, like we love coaching and it's the best way for us to help people see the most amount of progress, but also just being in that environment, like being with people and having such a good time all the time is definitely super fun. So going back to budget, like obviously considering the budget and looking for what you want, like there are surf retreats out there and surf camps out there that kind of are really expensive, but you pay for what you get. And then there are obviously surf retreats and surf camps that kind of are a little cheap on the cheaper side, and maybe you don't get as many amenities included, but like at the same time you can still kind of go to those if you're on a tight budget. So I would say like they're definitely worth it, but you just have to consider whether or not you want to go to one that's like more expensive and spend a bit more money and have a better, not a better experience, but like kind of an elevated experience versus going to one that's maybe a little bit on the cheaper side, a little bit more rugged, and maybe honestly, maybe even have a bit more of an authentic experience, because sometimes those cheaper ones can be almost more authentic. Another thing to consider whether or not it's worth it for you is probably proximity in terms of where the retreat is located. Now, obviously, everybody has different preferences. Like, and when you're considering a retreat, if you do think it's worth it, proximity is a big part of it. Like, as an example, right? If you go to Bali and you go to a surf camp there or surf retreat, a lot of them are located like kind of far from the surf, but they're located in a populated area. So you get to experience the cafe culture, you get to experience Bali and stuff, but you maybe won't be maximizing the surf because you'll be sitting in traffic or sitting in a hot car a lot of the time. Versus like, like I'll just use our retreat in Nicaragua, for example. Like it's at a boutique hotel that's like right on the beach and there's not much else around. So it's much more of an escape. It's more orientated around surfing and surf coaching, and spending time with the group that's there versus one in Bali, for example, where you're going to have all this like cafe culture and stuff. So it's not to say that one's better than the other. It's more just about like what you're looking for in a surf retreat or surf and yoga retreat or even surf camp. And you can decide, which is best for you. But it's important to understand this because like you don't want to go to one and they'd be like, oh, I have to sit in a hot, sweaty car for 2 hours, and I don't really like, I don't really like the cafe culture. So then you might consider a different retreat where you are more closely located to the surf. So just consider those things. Then in terms of something that's more maybe controlled by the retreat itself is like what's on offer. And I think one of the big things is like if you are really price sensitive, some retreats are all inclusive and then some retreats are seemingly all inclusive. And so if you're booking a retreat and you go to one that's seemingly all inclusive but a lot cheaper, just ask yourself like, hey, like what other things am I going to have to pay for? Because this one might actually end up more expensive than going to the one that's seemingly more expensive but all inclusive. An example like this is like, you have to think of things about like board rental. How many times are you surfing a day? Are you doing video analysis? What is the level of coaching that you're going to have at that retreat if that's what you're looking for? What kind of waves are you going to surf? What's the proximity of the retreat or resort to the waves? Do you get airport transfers? Because depending on where you are, a lot of times these retreat spots are kind of far from the airport and travel fees can end up racking up. And so while one might be cheap and they don't offer airport transfers, it might end up more expensive because you have to pay for that as an added extra. Your photos and videos, like if it's an all-inclusive, truly an all-inclusive package, then you shouldn't be paying for your videos, especially the surf videos afterwards. Like that should just be included. Do you get extra amenities like massages or excursions? Are you gonna have to pay for meals out? Are you gonna have to pay for drinks at the place? These are all questions that you want to ask when, especially if you're on a budget and you're worried about how much it's gonna cost for you. Just to conclude real quick, again, there's so many things that you could talk about here, but when you are considering a retreat, like you want to consider all the things that you're going to get, how much it's going to cost for all of those things, and then make a decision on proximity, how far you are away from the play, like from the surf. Is that something that you want? And go on a retreat, whether it's with us or with somebody else. Just do it, because I promise you, if it fits within your budget, you definitely won't regret it. It's so much fun.